Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to the Easter Pod. I'm your host, Corey Easterday, and on today's episode, we are chatting with the one and only Analisa Wall. Analisa is a singer, an actress, a stunt woman, and most importantly, a longtime friend of my wife, Megan, and I. So I was very, very excited to finally get her on the Easter Pod to talk about her craft, some of the production she's been a part of. We touch a little bit on some behind the scenes of her experience being a part of this most recent season of the Righteous Gemstones, which, side note, absolutely hilarious show. If you haven't checked it out, highly recommend. Her work on films like Guardians of the Galaxy and more, just getting into the why behind her craft and some of the cool behind the scenes experiences she's had being a part of the industry, and just her general insights on the industry, the film industry and productions and all that. So it was very, very cool to chat with Analisa and to get some more of that info and insight. And Analisa is very, very talented. So I know you'll enjoy our conversation. Stay tuned, check that out. And be sure to check out my previous conversation, the last episode, with my friend Tesho Akindele. Tesho is a former MLS player, played for 9 seasons in Major League Soccer. Very, very talented pro athlete on the field, doing a lot of cool stuff off the field as well that we talk about. He's an urbanist, a real estate developer at Camp North End here in Charlotte. So if you haven't already, be sure to listen back to my conversation with Tesho, the episode before this one. And in general, I always like to encourage folks, the whole goal of the Easter Pod is to bring you stories of rad humans that inspire you to engage the world with creativity and hope. And been doing this show for about 5 years now, have seen it grow a lot over that time, and a lot of cool guests on who embody that mission. So be sure to check those episodes out. And if you're into the show, if you like it, if you're not already, you can follow us on social media at the Easter Pod. Be sure to subscribe so that you never miss an episode wherever you listen to podcasts. If you get the chance, please leave a rating and review, share with friends. All the things very much helps the show. And last couple things here. Shout out to Easterday Creative at Easterday Creative on social media, easterdaycreative.com for joining forces with the Easter Pod to bring you these stories of rad humans. Special thanks, as always, to my friends Speak Seldom for creating the music for this episode, and to my friend JD Laird and his company Token for helping to produce this episode. You can check out Token's work by following them on social media at tokencreative.co, checking out their website, tokencreative.co. And last couple plugs here. If you want to check out all the stuff I'm involved in, you can follow me on social media at the Easter Dude or at Corey Easterday on X. And check out Analisa on Instagram, analisa.s.wall. She also has a website, analisawall.com. Check out her work. Very gifted and talented artist. Connect with her. And without further ado, my conversation with Analisa Wall. So, very excited to have a dear, dear friend on today's episode of the Easter Pod. Somebody that has been in Megan and I's lives for about 7 years now?
7 years?
Longer? 2016, 2018?
Is it 2016? I thought it was 28.
I think 2018. 2018. It was like right before we moved to the Charlotte area. So she is extremely talented, and we're talking actress, singer, fish hater.
I do hate
whatever
fish.
That means. Really hates fish. Stunt woman extraordinaire. The amazing, the wonderful Analisa Wall. Thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with me today and chat. Welcome to the Easter Pod. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good, fully caffeinated, and I appreciate you for finally finding me worthy enough to come on your podcast.
I forgot to mention in the intro that this is going to be a bit of a unique episode. And the fact that we have been friends for so long that typically there's like at least the veneer of formality on an episode of like, hello, nice to see you today. How are you? I'm good, sir. How are you?
We were part of the COVID pod together, so we've seen everything. The good, the bad, the drunk, the crying, the what am I going to do with my life?
On both sides.
Both sides. We had Friendsgiving together when we only were allowed to see two people for that year.
Yeah, it's been crazy, and today's episode I expect no less in terms of the craziness, but it'll be good. And so how we got connected. So Megan did photos for you back in 2018.
You can say it.
Did photos for you and your then fiance back in 2018.
I'm divorced.
Hey, you said no. Yeah. So that's how we originally got connected, and I remember, Megan was very excited of like, oh man, I got connected. She's awesome. Like they're also going to be living down south. As you mentioned, we also lived in the same apartment complex together in Fort Mill for a few years. COVID pod together, and I mentioned it up top so that like you're doing the acting thing, singing, stunt work, very multi-talented. And I thought it'd be cool to have you on too, especially in light of like past episodes with my director friend, John Kenneth Muir, who did Abnormal Fixation, which was my one thing on IMDb.
Your debut.
Yes. My 10 minutes on camera for acting. I had him on, and then Brian LaFontaine is a local actor here in Charlotte, has been doing it for over 30 years. Had him on. I just thought we're on this kind of theme of people like in the film production industry. So I thought it'd be perfect to have you on. If you can, just give like a quick background of like how you even got into acting and singing in the multi-hyphenate of how you got started, how you kind of, because your career's evolved even so much over the last 7 years we've known each other. So for people that aren't aware of the force of nature that is Analisa Wall, and I mean that in the most positive way possible. Like, what is that background?
Well, it started when I was about 3 years old, and I, was like a singer at 3 years old, and I come from a background of my family. They're not affiliated with theater or performance, or they're not musically inclined in any way. I mean, my grandfather was in a band for a bit, but when you have a 3-year-old that is singing, I sang the entire cast recording of Cats. And I memorized all of it, and they got me involved in Sound Celebration, and then I kept, which is like a little performance group, and and I kept getting all the solos and everything, and my parents were like, oh, like, is she doing this? And then I started acting professionally when I was 7, and they pushed me more towards the vocal route, and started getting classically trained in opera at about the age of 10, and never really had super formal acting training during this whole time, because it was kind of like, well, if she's a child singer, just throw her into theater and it'll work. And I had some like group master classes, but I was training like every single day. I ended up having my first Broadway credit at 16. And then basically like graduated high school early and everything, because I was just going back and forth. I was getting flown all over the country and going to New York, blah, 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 working with Juilliard and everything. And right at the last minute, I was like, I don't want to go to school for opera. I want to do musical theater, because I won first in the state twice doing a thing called forensics, which is basically not scientific forensics, but basically like it's like speech and debate. So there was the whole like debate portion, and they were in another section, and then you had basically you just stand in your hula hoop of space and you do a really riveting 10-minute monologue or play by yourself. And I won first in the state, and I remember the feeling that kind of came over me was, oh, nobody here knows that I can sing. Nobody knows this, like, because I was used to winning first all the time, being a singer. I was just that was just expected. But this was a moment of where it was like, oh, wow, like I could actually do this. So I was like, I want to be musical theater. And I was super late for applying, for switching my majors for everything. And I was like, I'm going to be a Disney princess. I don't know what I'm doing. Ultimately ended up going to the University of the Arts. became a member of Actors Equity. Worked in, Broadway theater and headlined at the Kennedy Center a couple of times, worked with the Washington National Opera. And I had pretty much made it at that point, and I was incredibly unfulfilled and super, super sad. And so I'm a big fan of, like I did, changing things on a dime. Not knowing what I want, but I know that I don't want this has kind of been my motto. I don't know how the heck I've survived. But no, so that's kind of what I did. And my family was down in Charlotte, North Carolina, which I had never really been to. And they were on the boat on Lake Wylie, and they just had this big family presence and support presence, something that I was lacking significantly up north. And so I went, look, I had a small business at the time that was doing fairly well. And I was like, I'm just going to come down there for like 6 months and focus on that. And then COVID hit. So then I got stuck. And then I watched how the industry that I had been born and raised into crumbled, and how poorly they treated the actors during this time. And then I kind of saw a glimpse into my future and how it would never be stable, and how I could never accomplish the things that I wanted as a person if I was going to accomplish the things that I wanted as a performer. So kind of dabbled in between, got an agent around here, wasn't a very good one. I'll spare you the name of them. And found a listing online for Guardians of the Galaxy 3. And I got into their database, and because I was an actor with a resume, they had a couple of like featured roles and stuff, and I was going to film a role that ended up getting cut, and I was absolutely devastated. I was like, oh no, thinking that it would just be that easy, right? Thinking that I would just go from where I was in theater then and be like, oh yeah, and then I'm just going to like get a role in this big movie. That's how it's going to work. And they went, oh, can you, like, we're sorry, we cut it, because then there was the other Omicron variant of COVID, and so that kind of got bumped down, and they were like, well, we're looking for background goers of our Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special, and I went, what the heck? Ended up getting thrown right in with Clementine, who was a stand-in for Palm or Mantis, and she was featured that day, and so then I was featured that day, and then I immediately started I got exposed to more people than the other background members were given the opportunity to. And then that bumped me into working on the actual film. Working on the actual film bumped me into a featured role on the film. And while I was working on that film for about 4 months, I realized that in the sea of thousands, I have never felt more at home than I did when I was the main attraction on a stage. And I do deeply, deeply miss performing on a stage, but the film community is just where I belong. I fit in so much better with them.
That's fascinating to hear that, like, starting out, like, doing mostly stage work, like you're saying. I was reading one of the things that I always love interviewing, actors and actresses is, like, just being able to get on the IMDb page and kind of go through stuff. It's sort of really cool to just have a resume laid out like that. And I was reading through your biography, because even though we've been friends for quite a while, there's some stuff that I still, like, probably knew at one point, but had completely forgotten about. And you mentioned kind of going through your background, but just, headlining at Kennedy Center, performing at the Washington National Opera, DC Shakespeare Company. Oh yeah. One of the earliest memories I have of you is at my 30th birthday party in 2019, showing me a picture of, like, you and Denzel.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, who is this person?
I have many pictures with him, and he remembered me. That was there's my grandmother's, she's absolutely agape, standing next to him, like, in the picture, just cheesing from ear to ear.
So, like, having that stage performance background and then making that transition into film, like, and you just kind of said it, I hadn't really thought about before, but the whole going from, like, taking center stage, now you're doing background work, but it being as equally, if not more fulfilling, just being in that community. Do you still get to go and do, like, front and center stage work? Since
I've been working on my film career, and it's actually a career now, I have been trying to find a way to marry the two. And I am now in a band, and I do sing occasionally.
Wait, you're in a band?
Yeah.
What band are you?
We were called the Generations.
That's awesome. I love that. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, it's new. I pretty much got into it like 4 or 5 months ago. But yeah, our first gig is April 6th, I think. But we do like a lot of like cover stuff and, like rock stuff. And it's kind of like Sirius XM, The Spectrum, kind of that genre of music. And then they did present themselves as a yacht rock band, but I was like, we're going to change that.
No, I'm not doing yacht rock.
We're not doing yacht rock. But no, I mean, that's definitely my goal is to, I want to be able to, I'm finally now getting to the point of where like I have enough money coming from film so that I can stop working so hard and I can, stop hustling in that regard and then kind of get back to my roots.
Yeah, because I mean, you're also a small business owner. We talked about that a little off mic of how that's kind of waned down over the years. You're trying to put more of a focus on your performance career. And it's like pretty cool. Like you're like in SAG, like you got all the legit credentials. How did that process like work in terms of like becoming a SAG member, and what has that done to like help boost your prospects?
So Equity and SAG-AFTRA are...
Or maybe even explain what it is too for,
Yeah, so it's basically the actors union for film actors. Actors Equity was what I was in when I was in New York and Philadelphia. Two very completely different structures, two completely different unions. I prefer SAG-AFTRA because of the regimens in place and everything. However, the health insurance thing is just a whole debacle. But in order to get eligible, in Georgia, it is a right to work state. So you can't do it the way that some people do it, which is not necessarily like worse or whatnot, but a lot of the times the only opportunities are doing like SAG background. So a lot of the times people will get their SAG card by doing a lot of SAG background, the same way that you can get your Equity card by doing a lot of understudy roles. I personally don't feel like that is advantageous because you may not have the experience to qualify you to be in that caliber, if that makes sense. If you are only getting like background work and you're really not being recognized for your talent in regards to, getting tafted the traditional way. It's called Hartley Taft Hartley something. It's called tafted is what I got, which is basically, so what I was saying is that you can't do background work in Georgia and then become a member of SAG. It is all non-union and a little bit underpaid. But to get tafted, it's extremely difficult. But once you are SAG eligible, you're in. It's because of all the paperwork. It's just a nightmare for production. So you basically kind of have to have somebody advocate for you and kind of put in all that paperwork, and then they have to have your resume and they have to have your headshot and they have to be like, is this person an actor? Do we want this person in our union? And I got tafted on a movie called Traction Park Massacre. And
what? That title alone, that's very intriguing.
That's it's I think it's out right now. So yeah, I got tafted last year in April. Yeah, it was kind of like a little early birthday present, and that was really, really fun. It was also when I got my first trailer too, like official trailer with my name on it. So that was kind of fun for me, and sitting alone in your trailer going like, this is exciting, while all these other people have just had it their whole life and they're just walking around. You're like, yeah, I'm cool.
What's the big deal?
Yeah, like it's fine.
I had a bigger trailer last week.
Yeah, I had my own toilet.
Yeah. That's incredible. What was the experience like on the set of some of those more major productions like Guardians? And I don't know, I don't think you mentioned it, but you were recently on an episode of Righteous Gemstones, which we'll go into that after. I want to hear about the Guardians things first, but just what that whole experience is like, and also because over time, I remember when you were doing that, and your partner Mark, who's also an actor and stuntman.
Yes, now.
Yeah, okay. So he was also a part of those productions, right? The holiday special and 3, right? Both?
Yeah.
You were both a part of both?
He did background on the holiday special, and then he did prosthetics in the movie.
Okay. But I remember as that was happening and catching the trailers and be like, oh, that's Mark in the bunny outfit.
Yep.
And that's
the terrifying bunny.
like pausing the screen, like, oh, there's Annalisa's head for like 3 seconds.
Yep.
And then as you're like just panning through nowhere in the holiday special or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But just what was it like being a part of those productions and then kind of being into the Marvel universe, even in a smaller role?
It's pretty overwhelming to kind of go from theater where everything is real to then going into a planet like Nowhere where about 50% of it is fake. We were in a couple of studios down in Trilith where the Nowhere set is real. It's a real physical set. Just the props and costumes and everything and the set dressings are super, super awesome. But we are on a giant celestial head. So pretty much
that wasn't like an actual celestial head in space.
No, so they did rocket ship us all the way. It was very costly. But no, so about like 50% up is all blue screen. When you're down there, and then when you see the movie, kind of how it like comes down, you're like, oh, none of that was there. It's all CGI at the top. And then they did do the little 360 photos of us, and they AI rendered copies of us way, way, way in the background to make it look like there's a lot more people on the planet.
That's crazy. Mm-hmm. I did not know that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I should mention, a lot of this stuff happens in Georgia, right?
A lot of stuff happens in Georgia. Yeah.
Why Georgia? Why?
Money. It's cheaper.
Yeah, probably more like tax rebates and all
taxes,
that kind of stuff.
And then also, like I mentioned before, the right to work. So you can get background actors for 88/8 instead of 241. And when you go into overtime, it's only time and a half. And we do follow by SAG rules, but if you don't feed your background actors every 6 hours, like nobody's going to complain about it. So it's most of the productions that I've worked on or have seen people, how they treat their background actors and everything is really, upstanding. Like James Gunn made sure that everybody was out by 8:30. Like he was like, nope, you guys are done. While some directors would just like keep on trudging, and these people are like sitting down because their feet hurt so much, and they're like, one more take. I was like, you're just not going to get a good quality performance if these people are exhausted.
Yeah, I think it is fascinating and being friends with someone like you, Hollywood can obviously always seem so glamorous, like the type of work you're doing, and in many ways it is, but just to think about how the economics of it impact productions and like the actual like labor pieces of it and all the details that aren't as sexy or fun to talk or think about, but how they impact like what actually ends up on your screen has been, have you been fascinated to kind of like, as you, maybe not fascinated is the wrong word because you're deep into it, so I'm sure there's like good parts and frustrations and things, but what's it been like to learn about that side of it, whereas maybe before, you're struck with that glamour and passion of performing, being an actress, and now, you get into some of the more like logistics of it.
It's a lot of hard work, and you are what you are selling. So a lot of the times, like you have to make sure that you are on point when you're not on camera, and you see a lot of like behind the scenes thing. Like for example, like Righteous Gemstones, I did stunts on that for 2 days. Was really only used for 1 day, and they are the episode's out now, so it's episode 2 of season 4. And the 3 kids, I guess, are flying above the whole audience in jetpacks. And they weren't getting the right kind of like jetpack simulation on the audience members. And what they ended up having to do was they took I think they took a grip, and he had 2 leaf blowers in his hands. And he sat crisscross on a dolly in the aisle, and they attached a rope to him, and they pulled him through the aisle, going like this with a leaf blower and blowing it on the audience member's face as Danny McBride like flew over top of us to simulate that we're getting wind blown by the jetpacks. So what is glamorous on camera sometimes is just like a guy sitting cross-legged with 2 leaf blowers.
I did not know that. Yeah. So for anybody that's like a fan of Righteous Gemstones, like you are prominently placed in episode 2 of season 4.
I haven't even seen it.
Yeah, well, my wife. So yeah, Megan sent you a bunch of screenshots.
Yeah.
I've been a fan of the show since it first came out 5 years ago or 6 years ago, however long it's been. Excuse me. And Megan just started catching up on it over the last several months.
Mm-hmm.
So we finally got to a place before season 4 where we were both ready to sit down and watch it together. And I won't give like a ton of spoilers, but first episode is this whole unique standalone thing. And so the second episode, you're back in with the family.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember you telling us that you're filming with Righteous Gemstones and what the scenes were like that you were doing. And the very first scene of episode 2, it's Danny McBride and the actress who plays Judy and Adam Devine and I think Edie Patterson. That sounds right. But all the 3 siblings in Righteous Gemstones are trying on jetpacks for this big like celebration of their mom, Amy Lee. And I'm like, this is going to be on Analisa. So we had our phones ready. We were like on the watch, on the ready. And toward the end of the episode, it's the actual performance where they're wearing the jetpacks and they're literally flying over the crowd. And I remember counting because we kept pausing like every 2 seconds. We're like, oh, we can see Analisa there and there, and there's the back of her head, and there's her face, and so there's like a good 8 shots or so that you are clearly visible in.
If you notice, I move locations for safety. That I'm not in the same area when we're doing the big crowd shot that I am when I'm getting kicked, and I'm not in the same area when he's flying. When he goes right up to the disco ball, I'm directly underneath him.
And that's what I was fascinated to know is like how that even came to, like you were telling me a lot of it's practical and you got the leaf blowers and stuff because if you had told me like a lot of that was CGI or whatever, because you're literally getting these jetpack steam like blown onto you.
They're all on wires.
Yeah.
So they filmed the whole thing with their stunt doubles first. And you can see kind of how they're like holding themselves in the jetpacks versus the actors. You know what I mean? Like they know how to hold their bodies. So when they are flying in a circle above everybody, that's all of the stunt doubles. It's really rigid. They're flying in that circle. But kind of coming over the crowd, they did a whole take at a bunch of different angles with the stunt doubles, but then also with first team. And Danny went all the way up to the ceiling. So when he goes like this, when he puts his head all the way up and there's the disco ball, he did that too. We have a take with his stunt double, but then Danny was like, I want to do it. So as you're looking down on his face with the disco ball and you see the whole crowd below him, that's not CGI. He is actually suspended that far in the air, which is why I'm below him, because I'm in a sea of background actors. And I'm good friends with somebody who knows a stunt coordinator, and now I'm friends with a stunt coordinator, and that's how you become a stunt person on these things. Is like you're just friends with people. There's no like casting calls or anything.
I was going to ask how even the stunt thing came to be.
Yeah, so he basically was like, okay, like I'm going to put you under him, just in case. Nothing bad's going to happen, but if he falls, like, and I was like liability, and he was like liability.
Again, that's those logistics and things you don't think about. The unglamorous holding the 2 leaf blowers.
And then watching Danny McBride's butt, go, and you're just staring at him.
We were also thinking as we were watching that, like, and just getting to know you and knowing Mark, like, how many other of those background people that are on camera, even for a shot, how many of their friends and family are sitting at home, like, sending them screenshots, like, hey, we're still here.
Oh, because, I'm sitting in that auditorium, and then you're talking to this other stunt woman who is highly, acclaimed. She's incredible. She was on, I think, Miami Vice for like 10 years. And, then some of the background actors, they start listening to you and they go like, so like, how do you get into this kind of stuff? And I'm always a big fan of being like, I'm going to talk to you like, you know what I mean? Like I may be doing this right now, but I was you once, and, I'm going to help you in any way that I can. And, ended up becoming friends with some people and sharing Instagrams with some people because that was filmed in Charleston. So there were a lot of people from Charlotte in that audience, and a lot of people didn't really understand how agencies work, how, SAG-AFTRA works, because it's not as a robust community as Atlanta is. So a lot of people were asking me a lot more questions than they would if I were to do that on a set in Atlanta. Yeah,
which makes sense. We had another friend that I don't know what her exact role was in terms of background, but she did some background stuff for this most recent season of Righteous Gemstones, which I always thought was cool about that production in particular is how Danny McBride and David Gordon Green and their cohort like always film in South Carolina and like kept it into the Carolinas, opening up a lot of work for a lot of people. But yeah, that's just so cool. Because I mean, being a big fan of that show, seeing you on there, like seeing your face clearly plastered on our TV screen or whatever. And it's cool to hear how those were all done, like with practicality, because I'm a big horror movie fan.
Yeah.
And I know there's always, which you've been in some horror productions, right?
Yep.
There's always a bigger appreciation for like when you can do practical effects versus having to do a lot of the like post stuff, which is, I think speaks to the stunt work, because that's what you're doing is like ensuring that they can do it more practically, that you're a trained stunt person. What does stunt training even entail?
So
I'm sure it's different for every production, but
it really is, and it's a heck of a lot easier when you have some sort of background in like dance or karate or like Muay Thai, because you have this automatic awareness of your body, of your muscles, kind of where you are positioned in the space. So it is a heck of a lot easier to kind of learn, punch and jabs and roundhouse kicks when you know how to do it safely. And then it makes you a lot more hireable. If you go, hey, you don't really need a stunt woman if we're going to do X, Y, and Z. Like I have another film coming up that's kind of like a Tomb Raider meets Taken situation.
What?
Yeah.
I love some of the descriptions of these.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
I imagine that's like a Hollywood pitch meeting. It's like, all right, it's Tomb Raider meets Taken meets Aladdin.
Meets Aladdin. Meets How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
Yeah.
But no, so like that one I'm gearing up for, and it's very different than the last one that I did, which is very like damsel in distress. But that one I got thrown around a bit in the last one, so that is super helpful to be like, no, like you can lock me in a closet and I can, get thrown into a trunk and I can bang my head on a window and I can get punched in the face and thrown into a wall and you don't have to worry about me. Like I'm going to be good. And some of these actresses, I actually had to help stunts on set because you had a not stunt guy lifting a not stunt girl and they fell over and she cracked her head on so that is what can happen when you don't have like an awareness of, your body.
You hear that, AI? That's one thing you can't replace in film and TV productions.
Muscles.
One thing you can't replicate. Speaking of horror and that genre, this is a little bit outside that genre. It's more kind of in the shock genre, but you did one of the nicest things anyone's ever done for me, and that on many occasions, which I meant to mention this up at the top, that one of your gifts, I feel is like, and I'm sure you'd agree, is hospitality. And you're like one of the more hospitable people in our lives. Like
I want to like kick ass and also like cook you Thanksgiving dinner. Like I'm nowhere in between.
That's your motto: kick ass and cook Thanksgiving dinner while getting a leaf blower trained on your face.
Yes,
training for stunts.
Yes,
very multitasking. But so in that vein, so I had mentioned to you that being a horror fan and being at that point a little bit more generally aware, but now I've been able to dive deeper. But you were involved with Trauma Productions and Uncle Lloyd Kaufman, which most people, if they've ever heard of Trauma or Lloyd, they kind of know the most famous, the Toxic Avenger in the 80s. That's kind of where I was.
Romeo and Juliet.
Exactly. Yeah. Before getting into some of the deeper catalog. But you sent me like a signed poster from Lloyd. Yeah. Which is a treasure I keep to this very day. Aww. That was extremely nice of you. But for people that aren't aware of it or Lloyd or that whole deal, talk about Trauma and your work with Trauma. I always found that so fascinating that you were in with them. Yeah, so I met Lloyd. That's actually the scene that I was in with Lloyd in Guardians that was cut. So it was me and him. That's why my IMDb credit says nowhere dancer, because I had this whole like little weird dance thing with him, and that got cut, but I'm still in it. And it really isn't about, it's really not about visibility for me in these larger productions, because like I have, where I'm first or second on the call sheet and a bunch of other things. And so it's cool to be a part of it. But I got talking with him, cause we were working on it for a couple of hours, and he was like, I want you in my next movie or whatever. And, he ended up inviting me up to Rhode Island, where we did a Q&A, and I'm pretty sure Lloyd took an edible before the Q&A, because he disappeared for a bit, and then his I guess his like personal assistant was like, oh yeah, like Lloyd's a hoot, and so we ended up. We should mention he's in like his late 80s right?
He's like 78. Yeah.
Okay, early.
And we ended up just answering some of the weirdest questions, and the audience was looking to me to answer these questions, and I wasn't involved in this movie whatsoever. But we just kind of rolled with it, and then he actually wrote a part for me in his most recent production of The Power of Positive Murder.
Monster Mommy, right?
Muscle Mommy.
Muscle
Mona.
Mommy, sorry.
Yes.
Muscle Mommy Mona.
Muscle Mommy Mona. Love him to this day. Really liked working on that. That's kind of like a film noir meets Clockwork Orange. But it's based on Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment. So I've seen a rough copy of it. We still need to do some tweaking, but I have I'm like a bar owner, so I went up to New York, where we filmed in a haunted mansion, very, very haunted. There was a haunted thing that happened. I ended up sleeping in my car because the room that I was in was so spooky. Like, I slept in my car and I slept amazing. Like, I was like, this is so scary.
Mister, get me out of here.
Please. And then the bunk bed fell on me.
What?
Yeah, it fell on me. Then I was like, I'm going to sleep in my car.
Yeah, a car's a better choice.
And then I went to set the next day, and I was like, oh yeah, the bunk bed fell on me. And production was like, what? Are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I just have a bruise. And
Good thing you're a stunt woman.
I literally woke up and went, and buffed my head.
That's always the thing you think's going to happen.
Yeah.
You dread when you're on the bottom.
Literally, when I was on the bottom bunk, I was like, this is going to fall on me. I was like, no, it's not. It did. Spooky house.
So you get working with Trauma and Uncle Lloyd.
Not really super. I like those kind of movies, and I mean, I might get,
How would you describe them, in terms of genre? Because they really kind of transcend.
They do. There are ones that I like and ones that I do not like.
Because they're super hardcore a lot of the time, generally speaking.
There are the ones that he is producing for Trauma, I find are a little bit more tasteful.
Maybe, because it's that, for anybody that's unaware, Troma's a production company, started in the early 80s.
Yeah.
With Toxic Avenger, I think was the first. But, so for 40 plus years, it's been I guess movies that push the boundaries of taste.
Yeah. And basically, their goal is to offend everybody so that they're not really offending anybody. And I really, really appreciate him and his vision for all of that kind of stuff. But there are some that I just personally am like, you know what? That's not for me. But there is a cult following, and they couldn't be nicer. I've worked some of these conventions with him, and the people that love these movies they look scary, right? They're wearing chains and black and got nose spray. They're so nice. They're so nice. They're so bubbly. They just want to take a picture with him, and he is one of the only people at any of the conventions that I work on that will do it for free.
That's typically how you the most offensive material, but everyone's so nice.
Oh yeah,
behind the scenes.
Oh yeah, and he takes care of his own. He's the one that introduced me to Sean Gunn and his wife Natasha. And, he was like, oh my God, you're such a good actor. I'm going to reach out to James Gunn. He probably won't respond to me. And I was like, that's fine. Still waiting for James Gunn to call me. We'll see.
James, if you're listening. No. Call me first. No.
Call me.
That's the nice part about being friends. Just open competition.
Yeah.
James Gunn called me first. Okay. That will never happen. Talk about Real Short. You mentioned that because you've done a few productions with them, right?
Done 5 now.
What is that?
So Real Short is basically
makes me think of Quibi.
It's a little different.
Okay.
It's Days of Our Lives vertical short form. So it is entirely generated by AI. But let me just talk about that a little bit. They came from a company that used to do those interactive video games with, she's so ugly and her hair is dragging to the ground and her husband's cheating on her. What should she do? And it's brush hair. You've seen those ads. It's that company. That company went, we're using from the algorithm what these people like, what narratives these people like. What if we started hiring writers? And that's what I meant. That part is algorithmic, but then they started hiring writers to write these hour and 10 long movies that are kind of based on what the algorithm was picking up that these people like to do. So they're full-length features, but they're for your phone, and they are cut into little episodes, and there's the top 20, and then after that you have to pay for it. It's like a monthly subscription. And I did, my first one ever was called Taming the Lion. That was basically, that was with Luke Charles Stafford, who is one of the Real Short like heroes right now. I think he's done like 16 of them. Couldn't be a nicer guy. And like we're still friends to this day. And after that one, I feel like Real Short kind of found their audience because you can't take it too seriously. Like the writing is Days of Our Lives. If you think about Days of Our Lives, how many times did the main characters die? How many babies, were born? How many times was somebody suddenly a doctor or a billionaire or whatever? You know what I mean? It didn't have to make sense, but our moms watched it. Our moms were folding laundry in the middle of the day and cleaning the house, and they were glued to the television. And so it's that, but they're now realizing that these same people are more, up and about. They're on their phones. So it's now for their phone. I did some stunt work on a couple ones. I did some day players on a couple ones. Got to be the villain recently. I had a little bit more fun with that. But then I just finished the lead in one called Firefighter Fiancé.
You were telling me about that beforehand, and I told you it sounded like a Christian, like a Kirk Cameron movie or something.
We mentioned Easter a couple of times, but that's it. This has
that's low key viral marketing for our family. Is little Easter Day mention.
I do say one of my lines, and on Easter Day, no less. There's everything you could want. Now I feel like that guy from SNL. This club has everything.
Stefan, yeah.
Stefan. There's
human Easter bunnies.
There's amnesia. There's billionaires. There's secret fiancés. There's going to the sperm bank and getting yourself pregnant. There's being sold to a millionaire for money. There's my mom's faking a heart attack. And now I'm a secret heiress. So if you want to watch it.
New York's hottest club is Firefighter
Fiancé.
Incredible.
Yeah, and then this next one I was just telling you about, it's kind of very different. There's no romance. My husband gets murdered in the first episode.
Oh no.
So you have to see my daughter's taken and I have to fight people. It's going to be great.
What used to be on Lifetime is now on Real Shorts.
Yes, I was also in a Lifetime movie where I died.
Really?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What's it like to die in a movie?
Fun.
I have heard that not from people I know, but just like you see behind the scenes stuff that people always have a lot of fun, like getting killed off in creative ways.
Oh, it's really, really fun. It's really, really fun to get, especially if you're not one of the leads and you're just kind of there for like a little bit of time. Now I feel like it would suck if I was doing like a long TV show for many, many years and then suddenly it's like, well, now your character has to die. I feel like it would be really heartfelt. I would be like, I don't want to leave this TV show. But if you're just doing a movie and you're fifth on the call sheet and you die halfway through and your death is part of the plot, it's fun. It's just fun. And then the dead body portion is just, class A. I'm a really good dead body.
Yeah. Which, laugh, but that is like a skill in and of itself to be able to do that kind of stuff. Yeah.
And after we did a couple takes of me laying in the woods, the guy who found me, he was like, oh, hey guys, just so you know, like that's a bee. It was like a bee's nest or something that I was like laying on. So the director was like, all right, we're going to wrap this up. And I was like, oh my
God. Wow. I love hearing about all the different experiences you've had on set with all these productions. And I love how kind of unique each one is. Mm-hmm. Unique, like, I'm sure there's like, you learn kind of a unique skill or have a unique like takeaway from each thing that you do. I'm kind of curious. I don't know if we've ever had this conversation because some of these stories I've like heard off mic before, but I don't know if we've ever really talked about this. When you think of singing or acting or being a stunt woman, who are some people or whose work do you kind of like follow or admire? Like who are your influences in these, would you say?
I love a good theater actor transitioning to screen. I love a good meaty actor. God, I'm so bad with these names. But you can kind of tell, like, when you, like, there are certain people, like, I just worked on an HBO show called DTF St. Louis with Jason Bateman and Lisa, oh my goodness, what's her last name? She was Scooby-Doo. She was also in Dead to Me. She's incredible. Lisa, something with a C. We'll fix it in post.
Linda Cardellini?
Yes, Linda, not Lisa. I'm a horrible person. Let me fix that. Okay. So I just worked. We're going to cut this. We're going to fix it. We're going to snip it.
There's not. Okay, first of all, Linda Cardellini is Jason Bateman may not listen to this episode. So I think we're fine.
I'm so bad with names.
You're
Okay,
not the
Linda,
first person on this podcast, let alone any podcast, to like have trouble with name recall.
Yeah.
So no worries.
But like, so I met Jason Bateman, and very, very sweet guy. He was my scene partner. But he's kind of like, he has a trope and he plays into that trope. But I feel like Linda is somebody that is like extremely versatile. Also like every time you watch like Game of Thrones or House of Dragon, like those people come from theater and that translates in an incredible way on film. I just feel like, especially with American movies, there are some people who have just kind of been given an opportunity to rise to fame just for existing and not being challenged to tell different stories and variations of stories.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And it's, having the, not necessarily nepotism, maybe in some cases, but just having the easy in versus like really having to kind of grind your way through it and work your way up, and all the skills and things you pick up along the way. That makes a lot of sense.
It's a craft. You know what I mean?
This is your craft. Yeah. I can attest to this, just being your friend. Like, you work extremely hard at this craft, and it's, it's fun to kind of sit here and like, oh, I was on this production and met this person or whatever, but excuse me, there's that daily grind that comes along the way, and those like kind of ebbs and flows of like, now we're not getting as much work and things are really big time struggle, versus you're just telling me beforehand, now we're in kind of a boom period a little bit, and that, kind of goes in and out like that. And it's never, and something talking to other actors on this podcast, it's like, even the most accomplished, successful, like, it's never guaranteed. You're always kind of like going from thing to thing.
Yeah. And I mean, I was fortunate enough to go from, HBO to then given a lead contract and then given another lead contract. But I mean, who knows? Who knows if April and May is, dried up? Who knows?
So to the extent you can control it, what are some of your goals moving forward, like maybe through the rest of this year, even beyond long term?
I think I want to look more into getting a manager, because with an agency, they're just going to kind of, churn you out, but with a manager, it's more geared towards you as an individual, and they'll kind of advocate for you. I need to get out to LA. I was supposed to be in LA during the fires, and I'm also working on my own project this year that when I stop doing other people's work, I will get back to doing that work. It's based on a true story, and I have.
Oh yes, I completely understand. Thank you for bringing that up. Sorry, go on.
No, you're fine. It's based on a true story, 16th century pirates, swashbuckling, female badass. And we're launching a funding campaign soon so that we can have the concept short filmed. We already have it written, and we have an editor and a whole team out in the UK, because it takes place in Ireland. And then after we film that concept short, you can basically like sell that and use that as promotion to get funding for a full-length feature. But doing something that is, Renaissance, medieval time period, it's going to be very costly, because I don't want to make it look, kitschy or cartoonish.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you brought that up, because I remember you telling Megan and I about that project, and I love the just like setting out on your own and being like entrepreneurial and like creating your own projects, kind of thing that you can have multiple roles, and I think that's incredible. Unfortunately, we have to wrap up in a couple minutes, because I'm getting texts from Megan that our daughter is melting down as she waits in the coffee shop to come take photos. So I want to get into where people can follow you, connect with the project you're working on, all that stuff. But before that, I like to get into this with every guest a little bit, because one of the values of the podcast, it's like stories of rad humans that inspire you to engage the world with creativity and hope. And everything you described, like, you very much embody that with the way, we were talking about this a little off mic. We don't have to get into it, but things can be very discouraging a lot of the time. So for you to be able to wake up each day to say, what can I create? What can I produce that is helpful to you, but also is going to be inspiring to others, or like bring some of that into the world. When you think about, and you mentioned like sitting in a trailer, talking with someone that's a little bit at a different spot in their career, at a place you once were, and you're advanced a little bit, like what kind of encouragement or advice do you typically like to give to people?
I like to give to people, I mean, really just don't give up. When I was at a spot of, where I wasn't booking what I wanted to book, I, kind of turned the page backwards a little bit, and I started doing, some smaller projects and gearing it towards that. And with that ultimately comes more links, more networking, more jobs in the future. I was pretty discouraged, and always don't be afraid to reach out to people that are in positions of power that you necessarily want, because the worst thing that's going to happen is that they're not going to talk to you, which they already aren't. They already are not talking to you. So that's actually how I started booking all of these reel shorts, because I worked a lead, and then I was kind of doing like a day players and stuff. And then I just reached out to the producer and I was like, hey, like, if you guys have anything down the line, like I'm like, kind of hurting for work, really like working with your team. And he was like, oh my God, like you're our first choice for everything. Hold on, let me put you in on this. And then, ultimately I ended up getting a role that I didn't think I was suited for. And then boom, with that just started doing like an uptick of all of these things, because now I'm back in the circuit. And that's what I said. I was like, the worst thing that's going to happen is they're going to say no, and you already have a no. So put yourself out there.
And we talked about that a little bit before our conversations where you're getting coffee or whatever, about that whole idea of networking and self-promotion and marketing and all that kind of stuff anyway. And it's exactly what you said. There's a resiliency piece to your creativity and your work of not giving up, and then just not being afraid to put yourself out there. We talk about that a lot over the years, where you're like, yeah, Mark and I or myself, like we reached out to so-and-so, or we got connected with this person, or, and I think it's true in a lot of industries, but probably especially for what you do. It is just a lot about who you know and how those relationships are interconnected, and how you can, like, a lot of the opportunities you've had, I'm sure, have come through that, and then you're able to do that for other people, and so on and so forth.
If you're good to work with, people will want to work with you more. And then like directors that I've worked with on like smaller projects have ended up bringing me on onto larger projects, because we just had such a good time before. So never say no to anything. Just kind of, but also know your worth. Don't let yourself get like walked on,
That's super great. Yeah. Cause there's a piece of, you can put yourself in such a position of, I'm at the mercy of whatever, that you lack all self-confidence, and you want to have both, obviously. Like understand your role in relation to someone else, but also know your own value and worth. Where can people follow your work, get connected, support your upcoming project, like all that stuff?
Well, right now, I mean, Instagram is a form of currency. So my Instagram is analisa.s.wall, ANALISA. It's just my name. I will be posting all of this stuff on my website as well, which is also myname.com. Not myname.com. I was like, you're going to say it. He's like,
oh, myname.com. AnalisaWall.com.
There it is. I just haven't updated it yet. I'm really bad about that. But yeah, I mean, Instagram is pretty much where I funnel everything nowadays.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I feel bad we had to cut this a little bit short, but going to get some photos of you taken. Thank you so much for coming on, breaking this down, sharing. I've always been very personally just fascinated by your work and all that goes into it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And I've always, you're someone that works extremely hard, and you are extremely talented. And I think that's a great combo that you don't often see in a lot of folks. Like maybe somebody's hardworking, but maybe this thing's not for them. They should, or somebody is like super talented, maybe a little bit more like, oh, that means I don't have to work as hard. But you have always possessed both, and it always has been genuinely inspiring to watch you like go after your passions full force. And like I said, in the most positive way, like be a force of nature of like, nothing's going to stop me from accomplishing my dreams and goals, and having the talent combined with it. I've just always thought it's really cool. So I appreciate you like taking the time on the podcast and breaking all that down and giving me an opportunity to like, put this out there and show other people how awesome you are.
Of course. Thanks for having me on.